who you are internally, the scaffolding, the internal scaffolding, is held in place by external forces. Job, friends, family, community. When you take yourself up and out of all that, that internal scaffolding, it collapses. And you really have to ask yourself, who am I without all of the external things that create my identity?
Hey everybody, Simo D here. In this episode, I speak with Elizabeth.Ink, an honest Substack newsletter that chronicles the realities of life abroad. A native of the US, Elizabeth has lived across Europe with her French husband and their moitié-moitié son. Through her essays, her interviews, and her newsletter, she explores what it really means to live life abroad. There's a lot of rosy language out there, eat, pray, love style content that Elizabeth likes to sort of show the other side of. For anyone out there who's considering an international move or has just started their journey abroad, you don't want to miss this episode because Elizabeth is an expatriate veteran and is just an absolute wealth of knowledge. So stay tuned. Episode 5, Foreign Radio. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome to Foreign Radio. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Simon. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
You know, when I first kind of got into all the expat, foreigner, Substack stuff, you came up pretty early on, and your no nonsense sort of approach to life abroad. It was like a stark juxtaposition to some people that like to look at everything through rose-colored glasses. So this is kind of why I wanted to talk to you, because why is it important to you to like tell the unfiltered truth about life abroad?
I'm married to someone who's not a U.S. citizen. We live in a third country. I've got a mixed up a child who's a third culture kid, which means he's living in your children. I assume your wife is not from Belize.
No.
So your kids are third culture kids. They're growing up in a culture that is neither of their parents' culture.
Mm.
So, and I've lived abroad a long time, and I'm it's an arc, and I'm over here, down over here. You come and everything's new and it's exciting and fresh, and you're buying your bread as an adventure, and there's an adrenaline to that, and there's a novelty to that, and it's quite thrilling. And then after a while, they kind of enter this a little bit of a grind, where now it's not so interesting. It's just hard, registering your car, hard. Going to the doctor, the pharmacist, trying to make yourself understood, even as you're assuming you're learning a language, you didn't come already fluent. So, and just also, even if you were fluent, there's cultural things that are confusing and kerfuffling. So you pass through this kind of difficult stage, and hopefully at some point you reach stasis where kind of it's all good and it's just like living anywhere. It just happens to be, where you live. And that's where I am. This is just where I live, with all of the same things that come with life, no matter where you are. It's just in a language that I didn't grow up speaking, and I'll still abut the culture. It just happens. It's nothing you can do about it. And, we have a saying in our family, we say, don't fight the it. Don't fight the it, right? You're not going to win fighting the it. The it is the dominant culture. If the little old ladies sharpen their elbows to get on the tram and they take you out on their way up, that's the it, Don't get mad. Just get out of their way. So, yeah. So we're kind of there. We hopefully you kind of reach that. So there was, there has always been this sort of, year in Provence, eat, pray, love. There is this kind of, there's a commercial upside to selling the fantasy of living abroad. People like that. It's like a romance novel. It's really, I like it. I mean, they're lovely to read. They're interesting, but they're not real life. And so when I came onto Substack and I suddenly was introduced to this sort of, as another Substacker on here calls the European dream industrial complex. Now, you're not in Europe, but it's really prevalent. France, Italy, Portugal now, and people are making a lot of money. They're selling how to move. They're selling how to get a visa. They're really selling the fantasy, I mean, more power to them. Go get that bag. But I sort of thought that maybe there needed to be a counterweight to that, you know? And I've been here long enough and I've known enough people that I've seen it all. And so there was a post that someone came, and somebody with a lot of money, US dollars, who's got a husband from that country to which she was moving, really played up it's my dream come true. There's no more hustle culture. And, it's a 2-hour lunch and they're so relaxed. And, and I just thought, well, you have enormous privilege because you're bringing all those American dollars over there to people who are not making the same salaries that you are. So have a little sensitivity, and B, you've got one foot in, one foot out. You're not really moving there. You're not going to live there. You're going to do this really I would love that. Give me a villa in Italy and, half the time in the US, half the time there would be awesome. So I read that and I thought I was offended. I was actually offended. I thought this isn't fair and this isn't right. And I just need to say for the record, what I also know is true. That is really true, the picture that writer painted, but something else is also true.
Yeah, it is like a spectrum of experience, right? Because it really does depend on, like we have that here in Belize too. We have some people that come and they live very, very modestly. They live like what a lot of would say like the Belizean way, which is like, a simple home, and they live very simply. And then there's also the people that come here and they have their yacht with the helipad, and and it's very, very different. And I did a living expense survey a little while back, and just I wanted to try to determine an average cost here because it's like a big debate. But I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to pin down because there is like a huge, some people are spending $6,000 a month on groceries and other people are spending $600 on groceries. Right. And, it is like a varying degree of experience. And I mean, I guess I just wrote a piece recently, I published it this morning about kind of like freedom in Belize. And I've already got a little bit of pushback on it because maybe it was like a little bit rosy. But again, right, it's like my experience. It's sort of what I've come to learn about this country and how it differs from Canada, and some of like kind of the innate rights that you have here and that the local people kind of maybe don't even really realize that they have. It was surrounding like just being able to be barefoot everywhere. Because that's something for me that I unexpectedly have come to absolutely love. And I don't think it's something that I would ever really want to give up again. I can go to the bank in my bare feet. And I mean, it's very specific to being here in a beachside community. But so what is something that you have unexpectedly come to enjoy living abroad? Something that, it's not like, oh, I moved to France and I love the croissants or something, right? It's like something that you wouldn't kind of have ever really anticipated, but that you've come to like actually really enjoy.
Yeah. I don't want to be the voice of doom and gloom about moving abroad. I'm like, I think it's great. Do it. It's wonderful. If it works for you, awesome. I think there's a lot of wonderful things about expatriate or living abroad or immigrant or foreign life. And I encourage people to do it if they come in with their eyes open. There are a lot of wonderful, unexpected things, like suddenly discovering, hey, man, I don't ever have to wear shoes again if I don't want to. Really vibing with that and sort of expanding yourself and learning things about yourself that you never would have learned if you'd stayed in your home country. It expands you in all kinds of wonderful ways. It really changes your DNA living abroad. It really does. And once you've done it, you can't go back. And then you can't put the cat back in the bag, and when you go home, you see your home country in this way, which is good and bad. You see it from an outside perspective, but also from an inside outside perspective. And other people who live there and haven't left, they don't understand what you're talking about. Or even now you're in Belize as a newcomer to the country, and there's things about it you find wonderful that now you're getting pushback about the bare feet. People will always bring their own biases and prejudices, and they will judge us when we voice our opinions. And that's cool. But sometimes I do wonder why it's such a fraught, conversation. You asked me, like, what have I enjoyed here? And it's an interesting question because I'd like to wonder if you wouldn't speak to this as well, because you're a parent. One of the things I've enjoyed is what it's done for my child. Maybe only Americans will get this, but there is a boot heel on the throats of American children to excel, to do well at school. The family routine for people that I knew in my life in San Francisco was get up early and maybe go to swim practice, maybe go to band practice, go to school. After school, see your tutor or do sport practice or music or theater, come home, eat a standing dinner, that you had takeout, put the dishes in the trash and do the homework with your kid, get up, repeat. This is brutal. And to take that boot heel off my kid was a gift that and Swiss schools they're difficult. No, they are, but they don't have this expectation that children shouldn't be children. They don't want to eat up every hour of every day with, activities that are, meaningful activities. They're fine with kids just, laying in their bed and staring at the ceiling. So this was the wonderful discovery. And I wonder if you feel any of that about your kids.
Yes, for sure. Like that was, it was one of like the benefits that we thought of when we wanted to move abroad. We just saw I have some nephews and so does my wife has nephews and nieces, and they were just like, a 3-year-old kid was just in all of this stuff, man. And gymnastics and music lessons and there was like no time for like free play. And one of them was actually like so stressed out that she was pulling out her own hair and like hiding it at night. And she was like all bald, and and then they're taking her to doctors and trying to figure out what's wrong. And it's like, she's 3, man. And you got her like, you're setting her up for prep school already or something. And it's just like, and it's so regimented. And, we'd be at the park and it's like, it's 5:55. We got to get back because we got this. You have to have your bath by this time and be in bed. And it's like, I don't know. That's no way to be. And in here, yeah, definitely in Belize, it's way more lax. There is such thing as like, Caribbean time. And while it has its downsides, it also has its positives, right? It's just people are so much more relaxed. The culture here too is a lot more kid friendly. When you go out, and I actually speak about this with my last guest too, who lives in Mexico, and he's actually from like really close to where I came from in Canada. And yeah, it's very kid friendly. You can go out and kids are accepted. You're not made to feel like you're a burden because you're bringing your kids out to dinner. And so, yeah, that was definitely we just wanted to separate ourselves from all of that. Right. And it's like, you can't really disconnect from that when you're in it. It's just like everyone around you is doing it. And
yeah, you can't. And the pressure's on the parents to do that for their children because you're afraid if you don't do it, it's a disadvantage for your kid. Yeah. So you think you're doing the right thing by your children.
Yeah. And it's so competitive. People are, oh, my kid is, 3 and can speak 3 languages and, and can play the flute and all. And you're just like, I don't know. It's like, why, you come here and part of the reason here is just like, there is a certain degree of poverty. So people don't have those privileges to be able to do those things, but it's also sort of like an equalizer and it takes like the pressure off of, like performance at such a young level. and it's just not necessary. We have, there's rep leagues for hockey, and kids, are getting scouted at like 10 for the NHL. It's like, that's just crazy, man. No one needs that kind of pressure at that age, right?
I agree. One of the child actors, was it Colleen McCulkin? One of the child actors, as an adult, said about child actors, he said, "There's nothing you can't do at 25 that you could do at 12." In other words, you're not hurting yourself. You're not hurting your kid by waiting. You can become a star at 20 or 25. You don't have to become a star at 10 or 11, or you can become an actor at 20. Um, you know, Childhood comes around once. It's brief and it deserves some protecting, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And that was, it was a key consideration for us. It was just a way to, sort of sidestep out of that and find something new. And we're here too. We're in a small school. There's only like 45 kids in the entire school. And so there's a lot more exposure to the other older kids, and everyone kind of looks after each other. There's like a real sense of community in the school, which, you're not getting that back home. The schools are pretty much overpopulated and understaffed. And so, yeah. And that was surprising too, because we were worried about the public school system here is like, it's not great, but so we are in a private school. But it turns out that it's actually some people we know that have gone back to Canada and the US and put their kids in school there, and their kids are actually advanced in comparison. And I think it's because they get that one-on-one, and it's like not your typical school system.
Undoubtedly.
Curriculum. Yeah.
Undoubtedly. A lot of personal attention and someone who cares about someone who is invested. People respond when someone cares and someone's asking you to do your best and believes you can do it. This really, I think, encourages children to try.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just here's the homework and I don't care. It's not really very motivating to a child anyway.
No, especially my kids.
Mine either, man.
Mine are still young, but we're not too keen on homework. I mean, schoolwork should be for school, and like I don't know, just get it done at school, and then come home and do what the things you want to do.
Dude, there is literally no study that shows that homework is beneficial. Like most of the studies tell you that it's counterproductive.
Interesting. I mean, I hated doing it back at. I remember as a kid, I absolutely hated the homework and the pressure of trying to get it done, and it's just it's like a
punishment.
Mm-hmm. It's like a demotivator for learning, really.
Yeah. I'm glad your kids are happy. I'm glad you found a good school for them. So
important. It's nice. So one thing for me that was big when we moved here is a career. And I know you've mentioned in one of your posts that moving abroad killed your career. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit and what you mean and the challenges surrounding, moving abroad and trying to find work or keep working in the job that you're doing?
Yeah. So when I met my now husband, I was just getting out of graduate school. And I was on the job market, and I decided that it maybe was an okay time to move because I didn't have anything keeping me. And so that was the first time I moved to France. And I thought, well, I'll spend a year learning French, and it'll be fine, and it'll sort of, it'll all work out. I'll get the language, I'll get the visa, I'll get the job. Well, that is not what happened. I got the language and I got a job, but it was teaching English.
Mm.
And which, it's valuable work, but it wasn't very interesting to me. Prior to going to graduate school, I had been a journalist, and I had worked in politics, and so it was not as intellectually stimulating as I might have wanted. We moved back to the US, we had a kid, and I thought, well, once my kid's in school, that'll do it. Then I can speak the language. I'll go back to work. And that didn't work because then I was starting to think about, doing interviews. I was working my social network, and we moved again and moved to a place where I didn't speak the language. And I decided this is not great. So I had always wanted to write fiction, and so I started writing fiction. And I had a couple plays that were produced. I had a musical that was produced. This was all in the United States. It was through theaters and work and contacts that I had people I knew in LA. And then I wrote a screenplay, and I won a big fellowship. And so I started working as like a reader for people's scripts, and I was looking to see if I could get staffed on a show. But that was complicated. I don't really want to bore people, but it has to do with the way that television is funded in Europe, and each country kind of has its own fund. There's an EU fund, and then that's also, it's like Austria, like say would have like an EU fund, then Austria would also have a pot of money. And generally speaking, you have to be a citizen of that country. So Switzerland doesn't have as big productions. I also don't have any Swiss German, and I live in a German canton. If I was in Geneva where they speak French, that might have been different. So it just felt like it was kind of never-ending obstacles. And so I joined Substack, which, I'm going to be really honest, doesn't actually work for me 100% because it's this sort of, first person, nonfiction narrative. I'm a really shy person. I struggle with writing about myself. I don't think it's interesting. I don't really want my life out there. What I do is I want to write fiction. So I have sort of trying to find a balance with Substack where maybe I do once a month something higher quality. And then I'm working on a novel that was a screenplay, and the screenplay was picked up, but it wasn't developed. And so I'm going to turn this screenplay, I'm trying to turn it into a novel.
So what would your key takeaway then be for people who
don't move? If you really care about your job, don't move. It's been brutal. It's like every time I take 2 steps forward, there's like another rock that hits me, and I got to get that rock off, and then I got to pivot, and then I go in that direction, and there's another rock. I think it's probably the kind of work I did. It's made it difficult. We were moving for my husband's career. He was making more money. I think it was a financial decision for our family. But if you're moving for someone's career who's in the sciences, which he was in pharma, I was ending up in these communities that they're full of other scientists, and I'm an artist. And so it was never really quite the vibe that I was looking for. So I don't know. I think the advice is don't move for someone else's career unless you really don't have any ambition for yourself. And if you are going to move for someone else's career, you have to get right with the fact that you're not going to have the kind of career you thought you were going to have. And if someone tells you otherwise, please, I would love to be corrected, but I just don't think it's possible. Now, I know that a lot of people who work digitally and can work nomadically and have those careers already established, it's much more seamless. It's much more seamless. I didn't have this already established, so I couldn't bring it with me. So I think I was at a disadvantage in that regard.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge for me too, because it was one of my concerns. Like I didn't really know what I was going to do because I was in construction. So I had my own renovation company, and I've been doing that for like close to 20 years, or I've been in the industry. And my business, I had my business for about 14 or 15 years when we moved. And it was a big concern for me because it's like, that's a real boots on the ground job. You have to be, there's no such thing as a remote construction company. It's just not like, but you have to physically be there doing it.
Right.
So it was a big transition for me to like get into essentially freelance writing and having to pivot. And it was a challenge. And like, Yeah, and a struggle. It wasn't, to completely, and on top of like all the other stuff you do when you move, right? Learning a new culture and the logistics of moving, and you add that into the mix of having to establish a new career, and it's very, very challenging. It's something I would recommend is like if you're going to do it, you have to and you're going to focus on the remote kind of stuff, is you got to set that up, at least plant those seeds ahead of time, because it's an easier transition. There's definitely a period in which you just feel like completely lost, you're looking for stuff to do, and and it's not a great feeling, especially for someone like me who was very like, my job was active. I was always doing things. So then to all of a sudden be planted in a spot which is beautiful, but it's like, what am I doing? What am I doing here?
No, really, I think that there is no joke. Who you are internally, the internal scaffolding, is held in place by external forces. Job, friends, family, community. When you take yourself up and out of all that, that internal scaffolding, it collapses. And you really have to ask yourself, who am I without all of the external things that create my identity? And that is a scary, lonely place. And not everyone can get through that. To really remake yourself again is no small thing. I really am trying to get through the camera and just acknowledge how I understand how difficult that is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
very,
you have to really like find something about yourself that is like that you can like repurpose or something. Like for example, like for me, it was, I kind of just adopted the mindset of like, okay, I'm still building. I'm not building with wood, concrete, and metal. I'm building with like words, grammar, and syntax or something, and then I was able to sort of, okay, like both things are creative aspects. Just one's more physical, the other one's more, I don't know, more. I mean, in this case, it's digital. And then once I was able to sort of like adopt that mindset, I was able to like lean in a little bit more to it. And then things have picked up. And by no means am I, making the same amount as I was as a contractor, not even close. But we've been able to offset that a little bit by the fact that our cost of living here is also considerably cheaper. So we don't need as much to maintain our life. So, but yeah, it's a big a big step. I know. So my last guest, they were already remote, so they transitioned into moving to Mexico quite easily because their jobs were made remote during COVID, and then pretty much right after COVID, they were like, "We're out because we can just go." And I know, I don't know, are you familiar with Corey Vinny on Substack?
no, is that who it was, who it is?
Well, he was my first guest, so he's has some job in the sciences, and has sold everything to go with him and his husband and their cat to sail the world on a boat. And they just purchased this boat, and they don't even know how to sail. Well, they do now, but at the time they didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, you talked to him.
Yeah. And he was, like changing careers is like something that weighs heavy, I think, on his mind. He's trying to figure out like what are we going to do? Right. But he's just got confidence in himself that he can figure it out. And that's a big aspect too of moving abroad, right? You just have to trust that you can handle what is going to be thrown at you.
Right. And you will. I mean, you will. And I just am so envious of people who have a digital career they can take with them. To me, that just sounds so fabulous. Really.
Yeah. I mean, there is a way to build it. It's a big change, right? Like I bridge a generation that, I didn't grow up with the internet. The internet kind of came into existence when I was probably 11 or 12 or something like that, where we started to have it at home. And so I've grown up to some degree with it. But again, like my career was not a digital career in any means. So it's been a big stretch to adapt everything. And
It's a huge stretch to adapt to it. And I mean, even some of the people that we know who went virtual with COVID, they've been called back. So some people we know have actually, quit their jobs rather than go back to the office. So it really did change things, COVID. It really did make it possible for people to do this and keep your employment and keep a sense of your identity and keep your income. You might not be able to stay someplace for a long time, you get a 6-month visa or something, but everywhere you went, you were sort of keeping those external forces intact. Um, I think that's if you can do that, that sounds pretty ideal to me. But except for the moving part, but if you can keep those external things, I think that's pretty great.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you like to cover. I like your should you move to? Those are good.
Thanks. The last one's coming out next week.
Oh, the last one. You're gonna stop doing them.
I am.
Oh, okay. That's too
I
bad.
am. Well, thanks. Well, maybe I'll put a caveat next to it saying for now.
Can you share why you don't want to? You're gonna put those aside?
I did them after the election in the United States when there was, mass hysteria and people were like, we have to get out, we have to get out, we have to get out. And I thought, maybe it would be a good idea if people thought about instead of what they were running from, what they were running to. So I thought, well, maybe people who've moved someplace, they can speak to that, honestly. And so you can really see this is what it's really like there. You're thinking about moving, take a look, and maybe also you could reach out to that person or, you would bring you into this community and you might get a little more exposure. And it also turned out without me realizing it, this terrific way to build my community on Substack. I mean, I just met so many wonderful other Substackers by doing that. That's really been for me the other writers who agreed to do it. That's been the big win for me is building my community. It sounds goofy because it's like, virtual community, but it's real and it's great. And I really love those people for doing it.
No, I agree with the virtual community. Substack is definitely great for that. Everyone is like really positive and supportive. And I mean, most of my interviews have come from people on Substack. And yeah, and when you do live abroad, it's like your community is very small. Even if you live in a fairly populated place, like the foreign community is usually only a percent or something of the overall population. And and there always is that sort of dichotomy, right? You're always othered, and I think you sort of alluded to this earlier, right? Like no matter what, even if you know the language, you're always kind of just like there's like a wall or something there, right? So you have to kind of develop other sources of community, and this is part of the reason why I do this, because I'm able to like meet people and have good conversations and hopefully create like long lasting connections and like a network of people. And I took sort of a page out of Gregory Garrison's book about social engineering, and this is like part of my attempt at doing that for myself, because I live in a community that is, there's a lot of retirees and people who are decently older than me and just live different phase of life. And, there's not too many people with, at least foreigners with young kids. My kids are 3 and 4. So yeah, the community is limited here, and you don't necessarily like everybody either and your piece that you wrote about friendship and how like they just sort of fade away at times.
Yeah.
It definitely resonated with me. There's people that we, maybe there were relationships of convenience. Like you meet somebody and they kind of move to the same country at the same time, and you can bond on that. But then as time goes, you see them less, and then literally there's somebody here that our relationship is waving at each other in the car when we drive by on the road, right? But we used to hang out, have dinners together, and it's kind of sad because I'd still like to hang out with that person, but obviously something happened down along the way that, they don't feel like they want to do that anymore. And,
You bring up such a good issue when you bring up friendships. I have a lot to say on this, actually. First of all, making friends as an adult is different, especially when you are sort of coming in without any context. So if you make friends as an adult, so you move to another city in Canada, maybe there's some context, people, you're Canadian, or they know someone, or they knew from that old city where you went to the same school. I don't know, but there's a little bit of context often. When you move internationally, you arrive without context and people don't quite know what to make of you. And so there's that. We might then get to know one another and find out, oops, not what I thought. So there's that aspect, which is weird. There is also making friends with people simply because you speak the same language. That's weird. Like, why is that a basis for friendship? I mean, you know what I mean? There's a whole entire country of Canada where people, most of them are speaking English. Quebecois in there. You're not making friends with those people just because you speak English with them.
Yeah.
So that's weird. And then also, again, I hate to be this girl, but a lot of people who move abroad sometimes come with some personal quirks and baggage. So sometimes you're meeting people who were running away from something, or have difficulty building long-term anything, let alone friendships. I mean, this is their 10th move, 8th move, and they're not really moving for any reason that you can kind of ascertain. And I don't mean people who are traveling or nomads. I mean people who are just pulling up stakes and moving kind of chronically. Often I find those people have left some kind of disaster in their wake, and then they're just coming to this new place where your life intersects with theirs. They make the new disaster and they go on. Friendship is a thing. I mean, it's really a thing. And when my husband moved from a temporary contract to a permanent contract here, I had a friend who worked for a company that was always moving their people every couple of years. And she looked at me and she said, don't make friends with anybody on a temporary contract. You only make friends with people on a permanent contract. She goes, or everybody's going to leave. I was like, wow, that's harsh. She was right. She was actually right. Because everybody I've known over the years, if they were on a temporary contract, they're gone. It's only the people I know who are here permanently or from here that I still am friends with. So
interesting.
It's complicated. Yeah, it's complicated.
No, it really is. And then you do kind of true drift from your friends at home because they're just. I mean, just in general, as you get older and everyone gets kids and stuff, it happens anyways, and it happens more than you think too. Because I'll talk to some friends, I'll be like, "Oh, have you talked to so and so?" And they're like, "No, I haven't talked to that person in a year and a half." And it's like, well, you guys live really not that far from each other. So there's also just that in general, right? Everyone gets sucked into their own lives.
Also another thing is what happens to the people you left behind. Time zone, just not the daily or whatever kind of regular contact. We can kind of keep the narrative kind of going with, if you don't talk to somebody for years, months, that narrative kind of falls apart, and there's whatever the bonds were that kept that friendship together, they disintegrate. So friendship is, yes, it's not you lose the ones at home, or you don't lose them, but the burner gets turned down on them. And then the new ones are less secure and somewhat less secure.
Yeah. They're not always established on the strongest ground, right?
No, they are not. No, they are
not. Sorry, just to jump back, because I was we got a little bit sidetracked. So, of all the you should move tos, you've done quite a few, and they sort of span, a good portion of the globe. Is there one? I know you said don't move, but is there one? Is there one country that sort of, I'm not gonna say that you would recommend, because I mean that's just very subjective, but if you had to recommend one, which one of the list seems the most appealing to you?
What a multi-layered question that is. Because, these people are being really honest in the Should You Move survey. They're really honest. They're really telling you, this is great, and I made friends, I would never change it, and this has been great, and this has been great. But there's always a large helping, half or more, but this has been extraordinarily challenging. This has been very, very difficult. And it's often relationships, friendships, the civic life, dealing with government things, employment. Those are big things. They're you can't really just make them marginalize them. You can't say, oh, I love the health insurance, but I don't have any friends. I mean, these things they matter. So in answer to your question, it's funny. The one that's coming out next week is the last one for now is Albania.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And I was like, are you kidding me? And she couldn't be happier. She's so happy there. And she's lived many places. And it's just sort of a kind of a baseline level of, I think, the deal breaker is how welcoming is the culture of you. She was in Thailand and she did not feel welcomed by the culture. And I talked to Kayla recently it was Girls Guide to Abroad. She just changed the name, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name she just changed her Substack name. And she's in Thailand for now. She's getting ready to move to Valencia. She will tell you the culture, abutting that culture is just brutal. There's no way past the wall. It's not welcoming. If you're not welcome in a place, if you don't feel good in a place, even maybe that's why people left their home countries, but if you're not welcome, you don't want to stay. And in Albania is really welcoming. They offer the really generous visa program. And they don't resent you being there, and they really like having you there. And I think that welcomingness is key. And someone else did one. She's in Sweden. Her husband is Swedish. She's an American, and she couldn't be happier. She's very much there, and that's because she's welcomed by the culture. She came with a native spouse. She mastered the language. She doesn't look different. And she's very rooted there, and she's very there and very happy. So I think the choice of the country that you would win is the one that welcomes you. Not just necessarily the one where you feel good, like maybe you really groove on the beach, but like in Thailand, but the culture doesn't want you. I think it's where you're welcomed, where you are really wanted. And I think that's getting harder and harder to find. Immigration is the defining issue of our age. It's what brought, and I'm really just going to say it, and I know that there's people who are now really taking sides, and I hope that everyone's on the side of liberal democracy. And if you're on the side of liberal democracy, then you can understand that what is happening in the United States is it's a regime, and it's all the hallmarks and ticking all the boxes of fascism and authoritarianism. You don't send the army in America to shoot American citizens. You don't do that, especially when the police on the ground had it under control, and when the majority of people who were protesting were peaceful. You do that if you're an authoritarian. You do that if you want to scare people. You don't throw a sitting senator to the ground and handcuff him. It sends a message and scares all the other democratically elected people. And in fact, Kristi Noem said before they threw that Senator Padilla to the ground, what she said, we are here to liberate the people of California and Los Angeles from their governor and their mayor. Liberate them from their democratically elected. Okay. That's you may not like this if you're listening and you voted for Donald Trump and you believe in what he's offering, but you have to acknowledge, if you love democracy, that is not okay. So I know I got off there, but you have to be welcomed somewhere. And that's true in the US, where we are no longer welcoming people. And everyone I know in Europe, and I mean, Americans, if you're listening, no one wants to come to the US. No one wants to cross that border. They're scared. So that's a tourist drain and a brain drain and an immigrant drain. You need those people to keep your economy running. And if you're not welcomed, you won't come. So just like the immigrants who come to, in the US to wash the floors, I'm an immigrant. Also, I'm coming here to, do what I do, write my books. I need to feel welcomed or I won't stay.
Yeah, honestly, I'm starting to realize too that Belize is like like as frustrating as the immigration department can be here. It's actually very laxed. Um,
I
it's
love that.
we've been here for 3 years. We're on tourist visa. We just go every month. Partially just because there was a point in which we didn't know if we were going to stay, so we didn't want to do the residency process. We're actually now going to do the residency process because we want to stay. But the people here are really welcoming, especially if you can like find common ground with them and just express to them like your love of their country. They're very patriotic. They love their country. So part of this post that I wrote, just that I published this morning, was inspired by, I did a little TikTok video just talking about like no shoes, no shirt, no service, and how that's not a thing here, and how it's like very freeing to just be able to like walk around kind of as you are, and no one is judging you, and no one is telling you that you can't come into their establishment or can't be served. And it, like, I'm not big social media person by any means, so, and it's like by far the most it like had over, it's at like 10,500
Wow.
views right now, and there's like over 50 comments and like 900 likes, and everybody was just piling in, all Belizeans being like, this is the true land of the free, welcome home, like do your thing here, bro, like all this stuff. And it was very, it
Wow.
kind of, I'd been having some worries about some of kind of local mentality towards foreigners, because there is, I don't really want to get into it right here, but the real estate industry here is bogus and unregulated, and it's pretty much controlled by foreigners, and it's driving up the cost of living here. And then, so there is a dichotomy here. Like it's a real pain point for local people. So I was getting a little bit worried about that, because I was feeling that might come to the head, and it still might. And there's also issues around here about people buying up beachfront properties and then not abiding by the laws here, because all beaches in Belize are public, called Queensland.
Build the
And
house right on the beach.
yeah, and then they come and they like, oh, this is my beach, and it's like, well, no, actually, it's not your beach. This is public beach, so you can't, and people are building docks and then they gate them, and technically you can build a dock if you get permit, but like it's public. And people don't really realize that, and then they're gating them off, and they're not letting people go on them, even though, yeah, you built it, but you built it on public land. It's like going to a park and building a bench and then saying, no one can sit on this. This is my bench, right? It's like, well, no, you just built this, you donated this thing essentially to the community, whether you realized it or not. So I was getting a little bit worried because all this is coming to a head, and there's a whole issue with beach erosion. People wanting to, because they like, I bought beachfront, my beach is eroding, so I'm putting out all these rock jetties to capture sand, but then it fucks the neighbors down the road because it sucks all their sand away. So there's all this erosion going on, and it all started way up the peninsula where we live with a foreign investment property. They built a big jetty, and then everyone had kind of followed suit, and like the wealthy foreigners who come here, they can afford to do these things. So and actually there's like a big activist movement. They come in here and they just rip them out. And like people spend like $25,000 to put these things in, and then the local people have been coming and just, and there's lots of foreigners involved in this too, and they just pull them out. And so I was getting a little worried that, yeah, this is gonna, like, is this gonna come to a head, and what's this gonna look like? But after receiving, so a lot of like positive affirmation from the Belizean people, it kind of put things into perspective. It's like, if you can, demonstrate to them that, they're, what they love about their country, and you love that too, they are very welcoming.
I love that.
And then again, like with the immigration, it's actually quite, I'm here, we're working remotely. From day one, we just said we were self-employed, and it's never been an issue because they know we're not stealing jobs. We're not here, we're working. All of our clients and things are, in North America and Europe and whatnot. My wife sells art. She's an artist. She sells it internationally. And they've never had an issue. And so, but really it is, because I mean, a lot of countries will say you can only be here 3-6 months if you're working remotely. And really Belize is pretty
Generous.
chill about all that when you really think about it. So it's a lot of this is putting things into perspective for me. So
no, and really this whole with, again, immigration, it's soured in Portugal. There too many people came with too much money. They had a golden visa program, so people came, they bought a house and drove up the real estate prices, left it empty, and left the country because now they had their visa. They didn't care. So just, a tremendous amount of hostility. Hostility in Spain. They had a golden visa program. They've canceled it. So, there's, I think also with the climate refugees that are coming and, the sort of this tribalism, this kind of age of tribalism that we're in. I think immigration is just only going to get much more complicated and fraught. So if you are in a place where you are welcomed and, you care about these issues, you already, because they welcome you, it invests you. You mean you care about those beaches. You don't like it when someone comes in and destroys the beaches or, violates, norms and standards of the country. Okay, so maybe there is an enforcement, whatever, but those are the laws and you follow them and you don't like it. And that is the love of country that, traditionally immigrants bring. They're like converts to a religion. They're much more invested in it. They're sort of like, they become more fanatical about their religion. And, I think people who come to a country that welcomes them, they don't take it for granted. You don't take anything for granted there. You're really grateful to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true. Okay, we're getting on time. I'm
a talker.
What's that? Oh yeah, no, it's all good. No, I've enjoyed it. So I actually wasn't even thinking this. This just kind of popped up. So my wife and I have this thought experiment that we sometimes play around with.
These are fun.
And since you have done a lot of, would you move to, or should you move to? The thought experiment is, if you could build your ideal country, so food, geography, government, architecture, so you can cherry pick the best stuff from around the world, what would your ideal country be composed of? What parts of other countries and cultures?
Okay. Well, for civic life, for ease of post office, telephone, internet, trams, paved roads, it is hands down Switzerland. My friend who's German said the Swiss make better Germans than the Germans. It's a spectacularly well-run country. I mean, they will tolerate a lot of discomfort to keep things working perfectly. They're repaving the road and you ask yourself, why? It's perfect, but it's not perfect enough. I mean, honestly, there's something's always torn up here because it's being maintained. It's being maintained at this very high level. And it's really, if I was more brave and did things like TikTok, I would do like a TikTok of a parking garage. Swiss parking garages are immaculate. You could eat off the floor. They're like climatisé, air conditioned. There's a little piped music in. The floors are like swept. It's so chill. and the spaces are big enough, unlike in France where it's like that. Spaces are big enough. You can pull your big car in. It's awesome. Okay. Switzerland for governance, civic life, hands down. Food is complicated because it could be Vietnam, it could be Italy, it could be Spain. It's complicated. I don't know. I think I would go with Italy. They've got an aperitivo culture, as does Spain. They eat too late in Spain, so we're going to go with Italy. Love everything about Italian food. And for family life and, loving children, good schools, prioritizing family, and also kind of the infrastructure to kind of keep that going, I'd pick a Scandinavian country.
Mm.
I think that they've got the money and the desire for the schools. Architecture. I don't know, people are going to think I'm crazy. I love London. It's my favorite city. The Cotswolds or something. I don't know. I love, maybe not all of England. We'll say London. I love the way London looks and feels.
Yeah. There's no wrong answers here, right?
All right. We have London, Switzerland, Italy, and one of the Scandi countries.
And then if you could put that geographically, where would it be? In the mountains, by the ocean?
It'd be Australia.
Okay.
I want that climate.
Cool. I wasn't expecting that one, but
I want that gorgeous climate without any of the bugs. I just take the climate. So.
awesome.
Or San Francisco.
That's great. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Have one? Have you guys done it?
Yeah, we've done it. We're always like,
okay, what's yours right now?
Adjusting them. Oh man. I think for culture and like people, we would choose Belize. Just because like it's just super chill and laid back here. Everyone's really welcoming. I think my wife has spent time in Sweden, so I think she said something similar, like for governance and stuff like that. I've never experienced that, so I'm not really sure like if I have a fully educated selection on that one. I chose for architecture and stuff. I believe I chose Japan. I like the. I have like I'm not like a Japanophile or anything, but I definitely have like I studied East Asian cultures and history and stuff in university, and I definitely have an affinity for that kind of those
beautiful.
Yeah, the traditional kind of Japanese style. I can't remember the name of it, but with the paper, wall type, the framed in paper walls and stuff like that. Food was a tough one. I actually I think you mentioned Vietnam, and I think I remember saying Vietnam because I love pho and I love their spring rolls, and so I picked that. And then for geography, I believe I think it was Costa Rica, because I love the blend of like mountain and access to ocean, and it's like surfing. And
that's a good one.
And it's tough, right? You can kind of like mix and match these the more you think about it. So yeah, it's fun. Every now and then we just kind of sit down and like
is fun
and do it again. So
that's a good one. Well,
thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know that our time difference is pretty big. So I know you're sort of winding down your day. So I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. I really enjoyed it. And can people, if you want them to find you, is there anywhere that they obviously Substack is a big one, and I'll put a link in show notes and stuff, but is there anywhere else?
I have Instagram that I don't really use. I'm on Blue Sky occasionally, but mostly I've tried to really reduce my phone time and my online time. So I'm really pretty much on Substack at Elizabeth.Ink. That's where people can find me. And this was really fun.
Yeah.
You're good at this.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, really. This is fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Well, maybe we can, we can circle back on another, in a year or something, and do another one. I really enjoy this. I think you're just a wealth of knowledge and experience for being abroad. And yeah, if you can, find it in yourself to keep writing a little bit more about your experiences, because I think they are valuable. I know there's like a threshold you definitely have to step over, right? Like I've been super hesitant and to share certain things, and and it's scary at times, but you just kind of, I don't know. If you can do it, I think people will find value in it for sure.
Really, thank you for saying that. It's very comforting and validating, because sometimes I think, like, what's wrong with me? Everybody's online. What's my deal? So thank you for saying that. It's very validating. And did you ever want to do the Should You Move survey? You can do Belize.
Sure. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll send it
I'd be
to
happy to do it. Yeah.
We'll extend it a little bit more.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, Simon, thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. And have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you online.
Love it. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.